Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalHalibut, and I'm here to talk about something of an important issue. Unfortunately, I really don't like having to do this. This is a gaming channel. We like to have fun here. This is all about enjoyment. It's all about how to spend your leisure time. Unfortunately, since a certain piece of legislation, or more accurately, two pieces of legislation, are being forced through Congress at the moment to stop you from doing just that, then I think we're just going to have a few words on the subject, are we not? So the subject of today's ridiculous lecture/rant is the SOPA, the SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, and also Protect IP, which we should never forget about, because that little act, which if I recall correctly has the short form PIPA, and stands for Preventing Real Online Threats to Economic Creativity and Theft of Intellectual Property, which I might add is a fairly terrible acronym because it can read in a very bad way. I just like to take out a little bit there. Preventing real online threats to theft of intellectual property. Yeah, we're going to God, my... America, please stop with the frickin' acronyms. Good God. It's like everything in America has to be marketable. Everything. It's buzzwords. It's frickin' acronyms all over the place. Even in politics. It's a joke. It's distilled down to sound bites and nonsense. Can we please act like grown-ups? This is lawmaking we're talking about, not a frickin' text message conversation. Anyway, so these two acts have potentially disastrous consequences for things that we enjoy doing, so that alone should be getting you a little bit riled. Now, to start with, before you say, oh, well, I'm not in America, so this doesn't affect me, yeah, it does. The problem is, a lot of the companies that would be affected by this legislation are in the States. And also, we're talking about a country that has a great deal of control over the internet. So that's something that you might want to consider to be somewhat dangerous. Now, allow me to give you a real world. This is not a speculative example. This is a real world example that happened just a few days back. So, Universal Music has been getting up in a tizzy over Mega Upload. Mega Upload, they brand as a piracy site. On the 29th of November, Mega Upload was unavailable across many countries, including the US, because of a DNS takedown request, and it was branded as a rogue site. The law enforcement authorities got involved in this. So that, if anything, is a bit of an impression of what's to come. However, it doesn't end there, because this is the thing about this bill. It's not just about taking down, quote, rogue sites. It has far more dangerous implications. So, in support of Mega Upload, a bunch of artists, including P. Diddy, Snoop Dogg, Kanye West, produced a song in support of Mega Upload in order to try and raise awareness as to what was going on. YouTube was forced to take that song down when they received a takedown notice from Universal Media Group claiming it violated their copyrights. Now, the scary thing is, it didn't. It didn't violate their copyrights in any way, shape, or form. They did not own any of the content in that video, and yet they blocked it anyway. This is an example of obvious corporate censorship, trying to censor the video because it raises awareness of an issue that they don't want people to get all activist about. Why? Because they prefer that people just sit back and be apathetic about this kind of thing while they take away your rights one at a time. The scariest thing is apparently they didn't even need the rights in order to take it down. They didn't need to have a legitimate copyright infringement claim under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. In order to remove this video, they claimed that sometime in 2009, they'd made an agreement with YouTube which allowed them to take down stuff they didn't have the right to. That should scare the hell out of you. It really, really should. You're talking about a corporation that apparently has the right to widespread censorship across the second biggest search engine in the world, as well as, of course, the largest supposedly free video distribution site, and arguably the largest site which enables the promotion of free and open speech on pretty much any topic you can imagine across the internet, internationally. That's something that's really important. Internationally, this site, YouTube, is able to allow a medium of free speech to people in pretty much every country you can imagine. However, the problem with this bill is that it could effectively destroy YouTube and any similar site. Now, why, you might ask? There's a fairly large article, a definitive post on Tech Dirt that I'm referring to right here by Mike Masnick, and there is a link in the description below this video along with all of the other references that I have referred to here that tells you exactly why that is. Basically, SOPA and Protect IP allow the takedowns of site via DNS blocking simply because they could potentially enable copyright infringement. Now, up until this point, there's been something called the safe harbor rule, yeah? Safe harbor rule basically means that unless the site is actively participating in copyright infringement, i.e. it is knowingly and expressly infringing copyright, it can't be held liable for the actions of its users, yeah? It's the same reason that YouTube continues to operate. If some YouTube user uploads a bunch of copyrighted material, YouTube is not responsible for that. It's the user's responsibility. They're not the one who gets sued. The user gets takedown requests, and if, of course, it continues, they, of course, get banned from the site. If they continue to circumvent it, then, yes, the law can get involved in it. Just bear in mind that the courts are actually a limited resource, and we probably shouldn't be wasting their time with kids that upload bits of cartoons to the internet. If you want an analogy, then think about this. Think about the idea of suing Toyota for the fact that some guy just ran into the side of your car with his Toyota car. Is it Toyota's fault that that happened? Unless, of course, it was a very obvious mechanical fault that caused that to happen. No, it's the driver's fault. It's not the car's fault. Let's take it to extreme, shall we? Because let's be honest, SOPA and Protect IP are extreme pieces of legislation that have far too wide-ranging consequences. If a criminal had counterfeit goods in a bank's safe deposit box, SOPA would allow the legitimate IP owner to shut down the entire bank and all of the branches without notice, search warrant, or due process. And you might think that that sounds extreme, but no, it's a good analogy because that's exactly what it does. It's basically saying that, well, YouTube, you've got some copyright content on it, so you know what? We're just going to block your entire site. Basically, it would result in the shutdown of YouTube and any streaming services because someone could potentially infringe copyright. And it goes further than that. Think about other sites where you can host that. Facebook. You can host copyright content on Facebook. You could post a copyright image on Facebook. Facebook could go down after that. Let's talk about other things. Imager, YFrog, PhotoBucket, things like that. You could even go as far as to talk about things like LiveJournal and people copying articles and posting it on their blog. That could technically be copyright infringement. The wide-ranging consequences to this are absolutely massive. And what scares me as well is the fact that the lack of due process would allow widespread DNS takedowns of websites without notice, and that basically blacks them out to the internet. There are ways around it, of course, which is why DNS blocking is a stupid idea anyway. It can be circumvented, but it causes a bunch of very real problems, including, of course, security issues, and a wide variety of security and software engineers have already brought up this point from companies like Google, Yahoo, and Cisco. And you should probably listen to those guys, because, you know what? They actually know what they're talking about. This is something really dangerous about this bill. The fact of the matter is, the vast majority of people debating it have no idea what it is. They don't have any idea how to use the internet, for one thing. They have freely admitted that. All of this stuff was streamed. You could watch these proceedings, and the vast majority of people had no idea what they were saying. Those that did, of course, stood up against this bill, thank God, assuming they were not paid off not to do so. But you also had people saying, I don't know what's going on with this, and maybe we should talk to people that do. The problem is that those voices were in the minority, if you can actually believe that. You want to explain to me why we have a bunch of 50 to 70-somethings debating a bill that would affect the internet worldwide, perhaps the greatest technological innovation that we've had for a very, very long time. You want to tell me that these guys who can barely use a keyboard should be debating this and passing legislation of this magnitude? I'm going to go with no. It's like putting toddlers at the controls of a 747, but not just a 747, every 747, 777, Airbus A320, every aircraft in the world. Do you think that's a good idea? No. But that's what's happening here, and that's dangerous. Now let's talk about the motivation for the bill, because you might say, oh, well, it's to help reduce piracy. Yeah, we get it. Piracy's a problem. But here's the thing. Big, sweeping pieces of dangerous legislation are not the way to deal with piracy. As many people have pointed out, including Valve, who are directly affected by piracy, not only in the sense that their games are pirated, but they run the largest digital distribution platform in the world. Their sales are affected by piracy. People who are pirating games are not necessarily buying them on Steam. And the head of that company, Gabe Newell, has said, piracy is a service problem, and the way to defeat piracy is to provide a better service than the pirates. And that's why you've converted a lot of pirates over to Steam. It's the same reason why a lot of music pirates have been converted over to iTunes, Spotify, Last.fm, Groove Shark, Pandora, and Internet Radio. because there are all sorts of different options available that are a better service than just hunting around for pirate MP3s.